Rescuer saves cow with abscess in leg. What happens next makes the whole world heartbroken. The cow lay motionless in the middle of the pasture, her large brown eyes staring ahead, unblinking. There was no sign of distress in her posture, yet something about her stillness felt wrong. The air was quiet, save for the faint rustle of grass and the gentle breeze. The sun, heavy and slow in its descent, cast long shadows across the field, but the cow remained in the same position, unmoving. She had been limping for days, but today, her leg was worse. The swelling had grown larger, the roundness of the abscess now more noticeable than before. Her breath came in shallow puffs as if every inhalation caused her discomfort. She wasn't grazing or roaming with the others. She had isolated herself, remaining still, her body heavy with pain, her strength slowly ebbing away. From a distance, the farmer had observed her quiet suffering, but today, he knew the time had come to seek help. The cow needed someone who could help ease her pain.
Yes, I need
someone
a
who
vet
could
to come out.
understand
My
that this
cow,
silent
she's
struggle
not
was
looking
something
good. It's
beyond
urgent.
mere injury. It was an affliction that threatened to consume her. The rescuer approached cautiously, his steps soft and deliberate. He had worked with animals for years, but even now there was something deeply sobering about this moment. As he neared the cow, his gaze softened, his focus on the swollen leg, the clear signs of infection that had taken root. The abscess, red and swollen, had grown too large to ignore. She had suffered alone for too long, and now help had arrived. The cow lifted her head slightly at the sound of his approach, but she made no effort to move. Her body tensed just enough to reveal her wariness, but there was no flight, no attempt to escape. She remained where she was, a quiet acceptance in her posture, as if she had known this moment would come. The rescuer knelt beside her, carefully extending his hand toward her. He didn't rush, didn't push. He simply waited, allowing the cow to make the choice to decide if she would allow him to help. Her eyes met his, calm but filled with the weariness of pain, and for a long moment neither moved. The wind picked up slightly, causing the tall grasses to sway and shift. But everything around them felt still, as if time itself had paused for the cow's moment of quiet surrender. Finally, the cow's body shifted and she slowly, carefully, allowed her weight to lean slightly toward him. It was a subtle gesture, but one that spoke volumes. She wasn't retreating into fear or discomfort. She was allowing this stranger, this human, into her fragile space. The rescuer exhaled softly, his hands never leaving their gentle position. He spoke to her, his voice low and steady as though reassuring a fellow creature in pain. "I'm here," he murmured. "We'll take care of you." And with that, the first steps toward healing began, not with force, but with patience, compassion, and a quiet trust between them. The cow was slowly led into the barn, her hooves scraping against the gravel path with every unsteady step. She was weak, her leg limp from the infection, yet she never once resisted as the rescuer guided her. The barn was quiet, filled with the soft smell of hay and the distant comforting sounds of animals in their stalls. The sunlight that filtered through the high windows cast long beams of warmth, but inside, the air felt cool against the warmth of the cow's body. Once inside, the rescuers' team began their careful work. They knew time was critical now. The abscess needed to be drained before the infection spread further, but it wasn't a quick or simple process. The cow, her body weak and trembling, stood as still as possible, though her breathing was ragged. The fear was there, a gentle tension in her muscles, but she trusted them. The long hours of care they had given her, the quiet tenderness of their touch had eased her into a state of fragile calm. One rescuer knelt beside her leg, running his hands along the swollen area. The abscess was hard to the touch, and when he gently pressed, the cow gave a soft moan, her large eyes narrowing slightly. She shifted her weight but did not move away. She had been through so much already. Every part of her body ached with the weight of the infection, and yet she didn't fight, didn't try to flee. There was only stillness punctuated by soft, almost imperceptible sounds of discomfort. "I know, girl," the rescuer whispered, his voice barely above a breath. His hands moved carefully, first cleaning the wound, then preparing to drain the abscess. The process was slow and painful, but necessary. The cow's body tensed each time the pressure of his touch grew stronger, and a soft, strained moo escaped her lips. But after a moment, the pressure began to ease. The pus, thick and yellow, flowed freely, and as the abscess drained, a noticeable change began to take place. Her body seemed to relax, the tension that had held her tight for days loosening slightly. Still, there was no great sign of relief, no sudden recovery, only the quiet, steady process of healing. The rescuer worked in silence, moving with gentle efficiency. He cleaned the wound thoroughly, applying antiseptic to prevent further infection before wrapping the leg in soft, clean bandages. The cow remained still through it all, her breathing deepening, though it was clear the work was not done. The infection had only begun to recede, and the healing process would take time. But for the first time in days, there was a sense that she would be all right, that she was no longer alone in this. When the last bandage was in place, the rescuer stood back and exhaled, wiping his hands on a rag. He looked down at the cow, whose eyes now held something different, something quieter. Her deep gaze met his, and for a moment there was no tension, no fear, just an unspoken acknowledgement between them. She was still in pain, still fragile, but there was hope now, and that in itself was a kind of mercy. The barn was silent, save for the occasional creak of the wooden beams overhead and the soft shuffle of hooves in nearby stalls. The rescuer took a step back, his eyes lingering on the cow for just a moment longer. She gave a soft, almost imperceptible nod of her head, a gesture so small that it could have been missed. But to him, it was everything. "Rest now," he murmured, his voice low, the words a promise of care. "We'll check on you again tomorrow." As he moved away, the cow lowered her head slightly, her body heavy with exhaustion but now lighter in spirit. She didn't yet know what the future held, but she knew she wasn't alone anymore. And in the quiet of that barn, with the soft sounds of the world outside, the healing had begun. Weeks passed, and the cow's recovery was steady. The abscess had healed, her leg no longer swollen, and her movements became more sure, though she still remained slightly apart from the rest of the herd. The barn, once filled with the hum of urgent care, now felt like a safe haven. The rescuer visited every day, offering her comfort, care, and quiet companionship. One evening, as the golden light of the setting sun filled the barn, the cow stood by the door looking out at the open field. Her gaze lingered on the herd grazing in the distance, their movements slow and peaceful in the fading daylight. There was a longing in her eyes, a deep pull to return to the life she had once known. The rescuer, watching from a distance, knew that moment was coming. She had healed, both in body and in spirit. Slowly, she turned toward him, her movements deliberate but calm. She approached him without hesitation, standing just close enough for him to reach out, her head lowered slightly, offering him the quiet gift of trust, something that had been earned through patience and tenderness. He placed his hand gently on her neck, feeling the warmth of her coat, the steady rhythm of her breath beneath his fingers. There were no words spoken, but the bond between them was clear, one of quiet respect and mutual understanding. He had given her the care she needed, and she had given him something far more precious, her trust. After a long moment, the cow lifted her head and, without a sound, turned toward the pasture. Her body moved with grace, her legs strong, her spirit restored. She wasn't rushing to rejoin the herd. She was simply returning to where she belonged. The rescuer stepped back, his heart full of quiet pride. He watched as she walked toward the horizon, her form growing smaller in the distance, swallowed by the evening light. It wasn't a grand farewell, just a quiet, powerful moment of healing and connection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the rescuer stood still, carrying the memory of this moment with him. The cow had walked away, but the trust they shared would stay with him forever.